Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to give everyone's internet a chance to log on in. While we wait for everyone to hop online, I'll just kind of go over some details. My name is Carla Whitaker, and I'm here from CalSOAP. We are the San Diego and Imperial Counties Student Opportunity and Access Program. There's several CalSOAPs throughout the state of California. The one in San Diego and Imperial Counties is the largest. And we serve students, especially high school populations, and try to get students ready for college, get them to know about what to expect in terms of admissions, the rigor of curriculum, the admissions process, and very important to us as, of course, the financial aid and scholarship process. So tonight's webinar is going to be about two of probably the most popular choices for our local students here in terms of when they're applying right now as 12th graders. So if you are a 12th grader or if you have a 12th grader, it's possible they might be currently applying to either a UC or a CSU. That's a very popular choice. And specifically in this area, San Diego State University or possibly Cal State San Marcos in the North County. And then, of course, we're really lucky in San Diego County to have a UC as well, UC San Diego. So what we're going to do is we'll split this a little bit in half. We're going to begin with the first half, and we're going to go over some information about the University of California admissions process and a little bit about UCSD in specifically. And then we are going to have San Diego State talk about San Diego State University and the California State University admissions process. They're both public university systems in California. So they're both public four-year institutions, but they are a little bit different in their focuses and the number of campuses and things like that. So we are up to a pretty good number of attendees so far, and I don't want to hold us up any longer, but I'm going to actually begin and introduce Chris Feliciano. He is an admissions officer serving San Diego County at UC San Diego. He's going to kick us off and talk to us about the UC process and UC San Diego admissions. Also, you'll notice that you're not able to type in the chat. I can, however, put links and things in the chat that you can click on. But if you do have a question, you should see a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, or if you don't, try clicking the three dots by more, and you can ask a question in the Q&A, and I will do my best to answer them. And also, both Chris and Matthew, our presenters, they're going to leave a little bit of time at the end of their presentations for questions specifically. So I will be monitoring the Q&A. I'll try to answer anything I can, but if I can't, Chris will leave some time before he finishes. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Chris, and thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you, and please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carla. It's an honor to be here on behalf of UC San Diego, and also an honor to share everyone's time with the webinar this evening. You're taking an evening out of your week to listen about not only UC admissions, but CSU admissions. So, huge round of applause for you to take that initiative and really excel and be ready for the application processes upcoming. So with that being said, I'm going to be sharing my screen here because I do have slides to walk through the UC application and give you an overview of what to expect for UC application and eventually UC admissions as students apply this year or as you support students applying this year as well. So whether you are a current 12th grader or perhaps you are a family member supporting a 12th grader or an upcoming high school student or even a transfer applicant, there'll be different things that you can listen to for today's application. This will be largely focused on first year applications, so I will emphasize that here, but do know that there are also other opportunities to hear about transfer applications and future opportunities. So please keep that in mind. And with that being said, we're going to go and get started. So as you consider the UC campuses, I do want to emphasize that at this point in time, there are 9 undergraduate campuses that first year applicants can apply for, which will include everything as far as our sister campus, UC Davis in Northern California, all the way down to your local UC here in San Diego, UC San Diego. You will not see the 10th UC campus here, which is UC San Francisco. Please keep in mind that it's only open to graduate level studies. However, if you want to pursue further education in graduate level studies, then you can perhaps look at UC San Francisco as an option later on. So I do want to also get into our timeline and tips for you to consider as we go into the application today. Many of you might know this, but I want to reiterate this information for the whole audience today. As we all know, the UC application is open. And what's new this year is that students can begin submitting as early as October 1st. In previous application iterations, we actually had only the month of November to submit the UC application, but now the UC has opened up the submission period so students have more opportunities to submit and even submit earlier. Now, I will mention this, and maybe you want to write this down. We do not have early action or early decision type benefits or unwritten disadvantages to applying earlier or later. But what you can see is that this more open submission period will allow you to maybe submit your application earlier so you can focus on senior year and perhaps even focus on scholarships and have that relief earlier on. So know that you now can begin submitting even today, and your deadline is November 30th. So please do not try to submit after the 30th because your applications will not be taken after that. Now, your notifications of admission decisions will come between February and March, depending on the campus. For UC San Diego, all of our first year decisions will be released by March 31st, so you can mark that on your calendar. And our transfer decisions will be released by April 30th. Students will have until May 1st to submit what's called their accept your offer deadline. At some universities in the UC, this is still called the statement of intent to register. Both just mean you're planning to enroll at that campus and you're submitting that plan to the campus you will attend. And last but not least, from May through June, for students that are waiting on waitlist admission notifications, you will get those continuously from the UC campuses where you are waitlisted, and will continue to fill the fall class at each campus until we are ready for fall 2023. Alrighty, so moving on to the next slide, I do have some tips here on the screen for you to consider as you get ready for the application or continue. First things first, consider your major and campus options. So I emphasize major and campus options because one, of course, when you go into the UC application, you'll see that you have to choose different majors or choose majors, period, when you're in the application for each campus. Now, I do also want to emphasize that different UC campuses actually have different policies regarding whether or not your major choice will affect the admission decision. What does that mean? Perhaps if you choose a capped major at one of the UC campuses, they might take in consideration that you chose that major into whether or not your admission decision will be an admit, decline, or waitlist. So keep in mind, some campuses have specific policies around your major choice. I will let you know that at UC San Diego, the admission decision is independent of major choice. So keep that in mind. You can choose a capped major, and that will not negatively affect your admission decision at UC San Diego. My second tip for you is to get an unofficial copy of your transcript, because in the following slide, I'm going to emphasize the importance of accurate information. You want to make sure that you're submitting everything as accurately as possible, which definitely includes your grades and courses. Now, if you're unable to choose a course in our application, for example, make sure you have that transcript next to you so you can input exactly what appears on the transcript for accurate information. My third piece of advice here is to keep writing your responses to the personal insight questions, preferably on an external document. Maybe it's a Google document, a Word document, or so forth, because when you're in the UC application, it doesn't always save progression if you just stay on the web page where you can enter the personal insight questions. But things like Google Docs and Word documents will continuously auto-save so you don't lose progress. So make sure that you have those in a separate document, as you would have in the fourth point here on the screen, a document containing your activities, awards, and work volunteer experience. This will be really helpful for you in the long run because you have to input that eventually in the UC application. And you'll notice these things can turn into a transcript and a resume later on anyways, right? So a transcript of everything that you've accomplished, which can be some sort of brag sheet, if you will, if you're requesting letters of recommendation for scholarships. But eventually you have to put that information anyways, right? So make sure you have a document doing that as well. Alrighty. So other things I'll emphasize here too, the importance of accurate details. So when you get into the application, you will actually see that students will need to sign what's called a statement of application integrity, meaning that you will sign a contract in your application saying that everything that I have input in my application is correct. We are honoring the idea of self-reporting in the application, meaning that we trust you to input correct information. And this includes your academic history, your activities, awards, work experience, your personal insight questions, and more. If we find that things do not seem to be correct or truthfully inputted, You can even be selected for verification of application information. And if we find that that information was falsified, your admission decision can be canceled. So please make sure that you are accurately inputting information, which is why we emphasize things like the unofficial transcript being on hand, so you can input that in the application. So please make sure you're adhering to accuracy in the UC application. Now, I do want to make sure I highlight some important resources for you when you do go into the UC application. You will see this on our website when you are beginning to apply. We advise that you visit the different pages from freshman admissions to applying as an international student or even applying for financial aid, so you know your resources and what your requirements are. And we also want to emphasize our requirements here. More often than not, many students in the county know this because many of you have been UC application educated, but I want to make sure everyone in the room knows what they are. Of course, we have our A through G subject requirements. These are the minimum subject course requirements needed to be eligible for application, including your 3 years of math, but 4 years recommended, 4 years of English or language writing, your 2 years of science, your language other than English, and so forth. Now, I also want to emphasize that there's an idea of going beyond the minimum to be more competitive, because we also have the GPA requirement, which is a 3.0 in 10th and 11th grade. The combination of these two requirements will make you eligible for application, but it's certainly always helpful to be going above the minimum in your subject requirements and your GPA to be more competitive for the UC. So please keep that in mind. You have your A through G subject requirements, as well as the 3.0 minimum in 10th and 11th grade. And I want to clarify the 3.0 is for California residents. The 3.4 is for non-California residents. And this is the UC GPA in 10th and 11th grade. Now, in terms of how selection works for all of our campuses, we take into account many different considerations. And this all goes into how we select from the applicant pool. We use a combination of the personal insight questions, which are your mini responses in the UC application. We also look at your extracurricular factors, whether it's your sports and clubs, your roles and responsibilities outside of high school, maybe even in the household and more. We're looking at the academic factors, how you've achieved in your academic context, so your school environment, perhaps access to community colleges that you had for dual enrollment and so forth. And we put this all into context. We call this contextual factors, because when we're looking at you as an applicant, we're looking at you in the environment that you're working with, aka your school, the neighborhood that you're coming from and or residing in, and how the combination of all these factors make you the applicant. And so please keep in mind, we're using many things to review applicants in selection. Now, I also want to emphasize that these derive from what's called the comprehensive review factors. Every UC has to use a combination of 13 factors in their review in some way, shape, or form. Now, I will say many UCs, like UC San Diego, for example, utilize what's called a holistic review, meaning that it's not just the courses and grades that are important, but also your personal and school context, any special talents that you have, life challenges that you overcome, or special circumstances that are important to consider about you as an applicant. So know that so many things are being used as comprehensive review factors, and campuses like mine, for example, use these factors in what's called holistic review. And so again, I will emphasize that UC San Diego is one of those campuses that does holistic review. And if you want to know which ones do, this is all public information and what's called the quick reference guide to UC admissions. So if you're curious, you can access that resource. Again, it's called the quick reference guide to UC admissions. Alrighty, and so with that being said, I want to go a bit into application strategy and mechanics. Of course, starting off with creating the account. So for students that are beginning to create their accounts or have already created, please make sure you're using a email that you'll have, really accessible opportunities to get into. What I mean by that is some of you might be using your high school emails, one that's provided to you from your school. Some of these emails will actually expire after you graduate. And that's not always good, because if you receive something like an admission decision in an expired email, then you won't be able to access that information. So please make sure you're using an email that you check regularly, and also professional email, typically something with your first or last name, or something that clearly defines and identifies who you are without nicknames or things that we use for things like video games, for example. Use a professional email when you're making the UC application. And of course, use a secure password because your UC application is very sensitive information about who you are, especially when you're trying to apply for the UCs. Now, when you're creating the application, know that for many of you, you will be applying for the fall quarter or fall semester of 2023. Now, I will say there are two UC campuses that are on semester systems, similar to what many of you are currently pursuing in high school. And those two UCs are UC Berkeley and UC Merced. Every other school is on a quarter system. So semester systems happen in fall and spring, or some might call it fall and winter. But for quarter schools, you're actually on a fall quarter, a winter quarter, and a spring quarter. So know that that's what that difference is when you're selecting that, in case you were curious. Now, for those that are looking for fall admission, you'll be clicking on fall quarter/semester 2023. Now, your application level is going to be freshman. You'll see two definitions here. I'm currently in high school and will be graduating, or I've graduated from high school but have not enrolled in a regular session, non-summer, at a college or university. This is because after you've graduated, the moment that you enroll in a regular term, whether it's fall, winter, or spring at a college or university, then you'll have to apply as a transfer student. But if you graduated and took a gap year without enrolling in a regular term, then you can still be a first-year applicant applying for the freshman level. So please keep that in mind. Oh, I skipped a slide here. Now, I do want to say, as you're navigating the application, you'll see this on the right-hand side of your screen in the application interface. You can go in bottom-down format, starting from personal information, contact information, and so forth, going that bottom-down fashion, or you can skip around whatever section you want to go through first. So if you feel on that day you want to start actually with your academic history, you're more than able to, or again, you can go bottom-down, whatever makes the most sense for you. We also want to emphasize something that we're adding here, preferred name, but we also want to emphasize the importance of making sure the name input in the application, for first, given name, middle, and last, are matching the things that you see on things like your transcripts, your AP scores from College Board, and even what you put on the financial aid applications. Because we want to make sure that we're matching the correct name and student information to that in your other pieces of information that you're submitting to our campuses. So please make sure that you're using the exact names that appear on other documents, again, such as your transcript, your AP scores, and your financial aid applications in the UC app. You can also put your preferred first name here to make sure that we're addressing you by what you'd like to be named. We also have a section here where you can input information about citizenship and residency. This is to make sure that we have very accurate information, which can also make sure we're considering you for the correct tuition purposes. So please make sure that you answer these pieces of information as accurately as possible. And if you have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to our office or even the counselors that support you as you work through this part of the application. We also want to emphasize that this will continue to help us consider different applicants and different students who are residents of California for residency purposes, for tuition, for example, but we also want to make sure that we're capturing the correct citizenship status or residency of our other students, and you'll see that here in these sections. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is also your household information. You want to make sure this information is as correct as possible, because when you get to this part of the application, things that you see here in the bottom of the screen, total income earned in 2021, as well as how many people were supported by this income, this information will help us consider you for a fee waiver. So in the UC application, you can get a fee waiver, meaning that you can have up to 4 schools for free to apply to when you're in the UC application process. And we determine this fee waiver eligibility from household income information, as well as the number of people supported by this income input here. So please make sure that you're inputting accurate information. This will be the same income information you're inputting for the FAFSA or California DREAM Act, so you can consult those pieces of information or the similar documents you're using for those applications when you get to this section. We also want to make sure that you're inputting the correct information for parents of the household. So make sure that you're putting your parents' relationship to you, and you can also put the parents' highest level of education, everything from no high school to postgraduate study. This helps us also get more clearer pictures of you as an applicant and helps us understand your context better. Alrighty, so as you move on here, again, we have another new section here called the Statement of Legal Residence. And so For those that want to be considered for California residency for tuition purposes, AKA you want to be considered for in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition based on your residency information, you can actually get that evaluated in the application itself. You just have to make sure that you click yes here to the question, would you like to be evaluated for California residency for tuition purposes? And that can be done in the application itself. So a really cool way, also making the application more accessible. Really glad to see that this option has been added to the UC application. Alrighty, so now we're going on to our campuses and majors, and we're gonna have to do this by the UC campus that you're applying to. So first and foremost, let's say you're applying to UC Santa Barbara. There's two ways you can actually view majors offered at that campus. One way you can do this is you'll see two categories here for selection. You can browse majors by college or browse majors by category. Now this lets you see, okay, well, I want to see a engineering major at UC Santa Barbara that's under their College of Engineering. But if you're not sure what a major falls under, a specific department or college at a campus, you can actually click on browse by category to see all the things that are offered as well too. So if you're unsure where to find things, you have two things to use for your major selection and search. Now, I want to go into what you will actually be doing for the major selection so that you'll see at every UC campus that you're applying to, you'll be asked to choose your first choice major in the left-hand column or an alternate major in the right-hand column in case you cannot be considered for that first choice. Now, again, I want to emphasize, like I said earlier, some UCs will consider your major choice in the admissions decision and some will not. I will say that for my campus, again, at UC San Diego, we admit by student first, meaning that we're reviewing the quality of you as an applicant. And then if you're admitted, we'll try to fit you into the major afterwards. What does that mean? Some majors have limited amount of space offered in their department, and we call those cap majors. And so if you're applying to a cap major at UC San Diego, we'll try to admit you first as a student and try to fit you in the cap major based on space and availability afterwards. Now for UC San Diego, we encourage that you apply to a cap major in your first choice so that we can try to see if you can get fit into the major at the time of admission. And if you can't be fit into your major, then we'll consider you for your alternate major. Our policy at San Diego, UC San Diego, is that if you don't get into your first or second choice major, then you'll still be admitted undeclared. A common myth that I hear is that students might think, at least for my campus, that they should apply to a quote unquote easier major to get in, like undeclared, and then try to switch into engineering afterwards. I actually discourage that for my campus because our policy, again, is to admit you first and fit you in after. You actually will find that at UC San Diego, it's harder to switch into a cap major after being admitted than getting into the major that's capped at the time of admission. So my advice to you, if you're applying to my campus, please put a cap major if you have even an inkling of interest in it as your first choice, and then consider an alternate major afterwards. Alrighty. Now, with that being said, speaking of UC San Diego, if you choose my campus in the application, you will see that you actually have to rank our colleges in order of 1 to 8 in the UC application. Now, the thing with this ranking is that we're going to ask you to do some research because UC San Diego's colleges are different in that each offer different general education course sequences. And whatever college that you're placed in, you will consider that as your home college. Now, on the previous slide, at UC Santa Barbara, the majors were divided by colleges. At UC San Diego, the majors are not divided by colleges. The majors are divided by departments. The college at UC San Diego is your home community where general education courses are housed. So when you're doing your research, look at the themes for each of UC San Diego's colleges to see what theme do I like the most, because the themes will influence the general education courses you will take at UC San Diego in that college. And that will also provide you a community as well as where you might find your on-campus housing. So make sure you do your research and rank the colleges accordingly so you have the experience that you're looking for at UC San Diego. I will mention that you can be in any college with any major and any major in any college. You don't have to be engineering at Warren. You don't have to be political science at Eleanor Roosevelt. You can be any major, again, at any college. All right, I want to get into the academic pieces. I'm going to roll through the rest of this application walkthrough so we have time for questions. Now, if you have any 7th and 8th grade math or language and other than English courses, you're going to put that here on the UC application. even if it didn't appear on the transcript. So I want to make sure that you know that if you took something like Algebra 1, for example, or even you took Spanish or French or even Filipino in 7th or 8th grade, whatever you see here on the screen, that was a 7th or 8th grade math or language other than English course, you'll be putting that in the UC application. We also want to make sure that you're putting the correct high school attended, because even if you went to Morris High School here in San Diego, you will find that there are multiple Morris High Schools across the nation. So make sure you're putting the right school in your search for high school, and then choose the correct one accordingly. We have everything from school name to city and even school code if you have that information on hand, to make sure we're giving you the right high school. Because if you choose the right high school that you're attending, then you'll see on the next screen that we're going to ask you things like, when did you attend this high school, start to end date, what kind of school was it, if it had specialized curriculum, what was the grading system, school term system, and so forth. We'll also ask you if this is a school that you will graduate from. So please make sure you put all high schools attended and include the high school that you will be graduating from as well. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you input the correct high school, you'll also see that your coursework, more often than not, will be auto-populated for you to choose from. A lot of California high schools have partnered with the UC to make sure that their course lists are accurately represented in the UC application. So more often than not, you will find the courses you've taken accurately represented here in your course selection. Just make sure you're choosing the correct ones that you know you took, so that we can match those to what we see on your transcript later on. And if you find that you cannot enter your coursework on the next screen, you can see that you can enter that manually. Please make sure you're entering the correct grades. You'll notice that we do not accept pluses or minuses. So even if you got a B+ or B-, you'll be putting that as a B. So again, make sure you're inputting the correct information as you go along. If you have to, you can enter your coursework manually, and this is where I strongly encourage you to enter it exactly as it appears on your transcript. That's why we really encourage to make sure you have your transcript next to you. Now, one nuance that I want to really mention here quickly is that if, for example, you had a class where you earned a D or F, but you retook that class afterwards, you're going to notice it still appears on your transcript. Some counselors or some students in the past that I've seen have input only the grades taken for the retake. So even though when I saw on their transcript later on, they had that D or F grade, but they retook that class for an A, if you only put the A in the application, that's actually not what you're supposed to do. We want to see everything on the transcript. And for those that are concerned about what that might implicate, know that we don't actually calculate the D or F grade in the GPA calculation if you retook the course, but we need to see that you not only retook the course, but earned the D or F. That's not going to hurt you. In fact, it might even help you to show that you retook the course. So please make sure you input everything on the transcript, including those D's or F's that you retook for a passing grade later on. I would need to emphasize that because I've seen too many instances where students don't do that, and that has resulted in complications later in the decision process. So please keep that in mind. All right. If you attended any community college while in high school, this includes dual enrollment courses. Even if the professor came to your high school and you didn't physically go to the community college, you still have to put the community college that you took that course from. So my example, when I was at Morris High School as a high school student, I had a professor coming from a local community college teaching political science. I had to make sure that I input the community college he was representing into my UC application to correctly put that course taken. So whether you took it at the community college itself or the professor is coming to your high school, then you still have to put the college that you attended. You'll see that you can also do a similar search, whether the college was in California, maybe you even did an online Harvard class, for example, or you did an international university online course as well, or maybe you were there for a summer. Whatever the case was, just make sure that you're searching for the correct college so we can match the correct courses to that institution. And if you have any additional comments you'd like to add in the UC application, whether it's about perhaps a dip in grades you would like to explain, or changes in course curriculum, or perhaps a situation in school that we should know about, one that comes to mind is a student faced 3 different teacher changes in 1 year for their AP English class, and that made it hard for them to learn. So they included that additional comment here about how that was reflected in the AP English grades, right? So Please don't use the additional comments to write another personal insight question, but you can provide extra context or clarification about your academics here. You also want to make sure you're inputting your California State student ID number. This will appear on your high school transcripts as seen on the screen. But if you're unsure where to find that, please contact your high school counselor. They know this information. For international students, we need to demonstrate English proficiency. You will have the option to choose how you would like to demonstrate that here. Everything from the TOEFL test, you can even perhaps demonstrate this with a high enough score in the English section of the ACT or SAT. But please keep in mind that even though you can submit an ACT or SAT score for English language proficiency, I need to reiterate that we are test blind evaluators, meaning that even if you submit an ACT or SAT score in your UC application, we do not review that in the actual evaluation. We are test blind. So just make sure you know that even though you're seeing this could be used for English language proficiency, it's not actually used for the evaluation itself. You can kind of think of this as, okay, this is helping me clear a requirement, but it doesn't get used past requirement usage. So please make sure you know that we're still test blind in the actual evaluation. Alrighty. Other things that you'll be writing about are your activities and awards. Now, one of the biggest missed opportunities that I see when students are writing these descriptions is they're not being specific, right? Someone might write about, I was on varsity wrestling for 4 years in the description, and that's all I get. But that doesn't actually tell me anything. So when you're writing the activity and awards descriptions, please make sure you focus on 3 things: roles, responsibilities, and achievements. I write a parallel here to as if you're writing a resume. So use those same tips you would use for writing a resume when you're writing your activities and awards. And you'll be able to write up to about 20 activities and awards in your UC application. Please just use the ones that make the most sense and best represent you and your commitments. Now, one thing I've seen also is that students are unsure of what they can write about. I've had some students in the past tell me, hey, Chris, I could not take any extracurriculars because I was actually taking care of my younger siblings while my parents were working. And my role and responsibility was being that third parent for my siblings. That is also still an extracurricular because it's beyond the classroom and has a role and responsibility. So anything that fulfills that criteria, you're welcome to write about. You have 350 characters for each description. So again, be very concise and write it as if you're writing a resume. You'll include your commitment and participation from 9th and 12th grade or afterwards. But if it's something that you did since middle school, you can write in the description involved since middle school, and then check off the grades accordingly afterwards. You can also input activities and awards that you've been a part of, which does include CalSOAP, for example. So please also think about the educational prep programs you've been a part of. We would like to hear about that too. Please also note that your UC application is a scholarship application. So when you get to this part in the application, you can choose any of the drop-down boxes and click on things that you identify or align with to help you be considered for further scholarships. Everything in your UC application can be used for scholarships, which includes your activities and awards, your grades, your courses, and also your personal insight questions. So you'll see that here when you get to this part. And speaking of the personal insight questions, I do want to emphasize that these are not personal statements, and you will see that they are worded as such: personal insight questions and not personal statements. You have 8 questions to choose from, 4 to answer, and your maximum words for each response is 350 words. All questions have equal value, meaning that we don't give more weight to a response if you responded to number 1 over number 5. Every response is given the same review and equal consideration. So please just choose the ones that make the most sense for you and help you tell the best stories about yourself. You will see that you will have to make sure you're reading to 4 questions below. You will not be able to continue and submit if you don't have full responses, and you cannot submit more than 4 or less than 4. Alrighty. Other than that, you will also have another additional comment section after the personal insight questions. Unlike the academic section, this one is 550 words rather than 550 characters. Please do not use this space to write a 5th PIQ, and please do not use this space to also continue a response to a PIQ. This is only to add any extra information that will be important to us, whether it's explaining an unusual personal or family circumstance or something that's just not clear in other parts of the application. You can use that to help me understand or any evaluator from the UC understand you as best as possible to add extra context and clarity. Now, as you get to the end of the application, you'll actually see the application tells you what sections are finished and if you need to go back to finish a section. For example, if you're missing a course in 12th grade, we're going to tell you that it is a to-do item for you, and you can go back to that section specifically. We will also make sure we're reviewing to see that you have all of your A through G subject requirements completed. And as you enter your coursework, this will automatically populate. And if there's a missing A through G, it will tell you here. So you can go back and correct that if you need. However, if you deem that what she actually entered is correct, then you can checkbox this here. I confirm that I don't have the courses that satisfy the math requirement, for example. You can save and continue and then submit. But keep in mind that you're checking this box to confirm that information is correct, because it's the confirmation of correct information that lets you continue. So that's the nuance there. When you get to the application, you will see how much you owe. And if you qualified for the UC application fee waiver, you will be prompted here to accept it. And then you will also continue to payment in case you have further fees due for applications beyond the fee waiver, or if you are not being awarded the fee waiver. You will accept that you have reviewed your application in its entirety and make sure that you are also paying the according fees. Please make sure you save your submission confirmation, including your application ID, in case you need to make corrections to your application or have questions about it to the specific campuses. Please also save the date submitted and payment method for confirmation purposes later on, in case you need to confirm that you submitted your application. You also need to make sure you're signing release authorizations as you submit the application, and you will be finished with the app. If you need to make any changes after submission, these are the sections that you can make those corrections, as you see on the screen. Everything from updating personal information, updating your ACT or SAT test scores, your IB exams, AP exams, and so forth. I will reiterate that we do not consider these test scores for the admissions decision. Even if we are allowed to submit those test scores, we don't get it in the evaluation. The only thing those can be used for is helping you clear an A through G requirement. So let's say you had a high enough score in the math section and you were missing a math year, like you saw previously on the screen, that can actually clear you for a year in math. So that's one thing those can do. The only other thing it can do for you is, let's say you are admitted to my campus or another UC. Most students have to take placement exams when they get into the campus to take math or writing courses needed for graduation. Now, if you have that high enough score in one of those two subjects and you submit that score, you will waive out of the placement exam and go straight into the courses needed for graduation. But again, they're not used for the actual evaluation when I'm considering you for admission. Alrighty. Other than that, these are the different ways that you can contact the UC Application Center for questions, and we hope that you're able to contact them during the regular business hours. You'll see that they're extended to make sure we can serve students. My biggest advice is please try to make sure you submit your application before Thanksgiving break so you can enjoy your break and enjoy the rest of your senior year. Alrighty. So that being said, thank you for your time, and I will now take questions.
All right. I have about 12 or 13 I was not able to answer. I did answer as many as I could. Would you like me to start by asking them out loud? And if we get to Matthew's time, we can always stop and have you answer them by typing, but I can start by asking you out loud.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one person is from Toronto, Canada. They say when they're filling out the UC app for the grades section, they say, I only have one grade for each course. Because of that, I cannot enter any grades. Is that like a semester versus year?
That's a great question. So you should have an option when you're entering your school information, the grading system that your school is utilizing, whether it's a quarter, whether it's a trimester, semester, or even year, and you need to make sure that you choose the correct one. But if for whatever reason you can't resolve that, please follow up with our UC Application Center to make sure that you can enter the correct information.
And I think you did answer this one. If I received an F in a course, but then retook it and earned an A, which of the two grades do I enter? And is this correct? For the UC application, you enter both?
Yes, that is correct. You will enter both the F grade received as well as the retake. But please keep in mind that we will only consider the retake course that was a passing grade into the UC GPA. So we don't consider the F grade in the calculation, but you have to answer both the F or the non-pass grade and the pass grade.
All right, same person from Ontario, they don't have like algebra, geometry, or integrated. They have math grade 9, math grade 10, math grade 11, advanced functions. How would they enter those, or would they have to do that manually?
That's a great question. My advice is to enter that manually. And if you would like to add further context, you can use the additional comments section to make sure that we understand the level of math that you're taking. But we're trained rigorously to understand the different contexts you're coming from.
Okay. Someone took a course from Brigham Young University online. It was secondary math 3. It gave them 0.5 credit hours, not credit units. Can they still enter this information on the application because it is 0.5 credit hours?
That's actually a really great question. I'll give you my first response, but then I'm going to encourage you to follow up with our office afterwards, because I want to make sure you get the full picture. So my first piece of advice is actually to follow up with a BYU representative, because typically these representatives will tell you what credit hours will translate to, so you can input that correctly in the application. But if you're not able to access information, then follow up with our office so we can get the right person to get you the right answer.
Okay. This person has a parent who received a college degree outside of the United States. How would they list that parent's college education or college degree on the UC application?
That is a very great question. So the UC application policy is that you have to list the level of education for the parents that was earned, regardless of whether it was earned in the US or outside the US. But if you would like to add context that the degree was earned outside the US, you will put parent education earned, bachelor's degree, for example. And when you get to the additional comments section, please input, I would like to add that my parents' degree that was a bachelor's degree was earned outside the US, if you'd like to do something, for example, like explaining you're a first generation student. So you can utilize additional comments to add further context to things like parent education earned.
Okay. In regard to putting community college course grades, what if the course number on their transcript differs, like in their high school transcript, differs from the course number on the community college course catalog?
That's a really great question. When in doubt, don't just get the high school transcript, but get the community college transcript as well. Now, we will look at both transcripts if you're admitted when we're reviewing academic information. So either way, we're going to see both pieces of information. You can't go wrong with using either the high school transcript or the community college transcript. I would probably lean to having the community college transcript next to you and using what's on that information.
Okay, and I have time for about 2 more before Matthew's time begins, and then I might have you type some answers, but we do have a couple minutes. This person says, does taking an online semester course from a university need to be inputted on the classes from colleges section? It was only for 1 semester and it earned me a certificate, but it does not count for college credit at most universities except for the one I took the course at. So would that be inputted on classes from college section?
That's a great question. I would still input it, whether it is college coursework or if you find out that it's not, it's coursework other than A through G, then you can input that in one of those 2 sections, college courses taken or coursework other than A through G, because that will still demonstrate to us you're taking college level courses.
Okay. I'm going to skip the next one because I think it refers to a previous one. If we did a club for multiple years, but only received a leadership position for that club in 1 year, would we choose every grade we were in the club or only the grade we gained the position for the community service section of the application?
That is a great question. So you'll still want to include all years of involvement, but you can include in the description, earn leadership position in this or like in X year for further context.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end asking you these questions and just check and see. Matthew, are you there? Okay. So I apologize. I know there's a lot more questions. Chris, are you available to stay on for a few more minutes and answer those by typing?
Yeah, I will answer questions up to the 6:45 and then just to honor the chat space for SDSU.
Okay, all right, go ahead, go for it. And now I would like to introduce from San Diego State, Admissions, the director of admissions there, Matthew Hebert. We are really lucky and really pleased to have him. And he's going to talk about the California state system and specifically SDSU and talk about their application process, which has many similarities to the UC and many differences as well. Welcome, Matthew.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, or I should say good evening, everyone. Great to be here today. And San Diego State has partnered with CalSoap for very many of years to make sure that you get all the information that you really need, students and parents and family members, as you're preparing to apply for colleges and universities this season and beyond too. I know we have some guests here today who may be juniors and sophomores and first-year students in their high school, potentially some transfer students as well. So I am going to speak about SDSU, but also the California State University system as a whole. So we have so many different universities here in the CSU that it really is a vibrant system that is, as Chris had mentioned, a state-supported system like the UC schools, but an entirely different system itself. First, to start off with, this is our staff as admission counselors at San Diego State. So if you attend a high school within really all of San Diego or Imperial counties, you may be running into us. We are visiting a lot of the high schools this month and next month, and all of our staff are really here to assist you. So drawing on my own experience when I was in your shoes as a senior in high school, I was super nervous and anxious to even pick up the phone or to email any admissions representatives. We are really here for you to demystify the whole process and to make sure that you have all of your questions answered and you have all the information that you need in order to apply for universities, but then ultimately make that big decision in the spring for where you're going to go to pursue your college education. So we have 8 of our staff who are out and about at all the different schools, and we have a very robust on-campus perspective too. So if you happen to find yourself on SDSU's campus, come in for a tour. If you want to Zoom in with us at any time, we have Zoom links we'll share with you too, so that you can just get on Zoom and come to San Diego State virtually and get your questions answered. So the CSU itself, the California State University system, there are 23 of our campuses located all around the state of California. And we're really what sets us apart from other systems and private universities and really other schools throughout the nation is really we are the largest system of 4-year education in the entire country. We have close to 500,000 students who are pursuing a degree at the CSU campuses, whether that's at San Diego State, whether that's at CSU San Marcos, whether that's at San Jose State. There are 23 different unique campuses, but we all really focus on the following different things to guide us in our mission. One is a hands-on approach to education. We're also focused on not just getting you into our universities and educating you, but focusing on that next step after you graduate from our university and looking at career pathways. So we have networks really throughout our different regions throughout the state of California to help you get that job in business administration, or to become a teacher, or to become a scientist or engineer, or to become a nurse, or to work for the city. So we're really focused on not just the education once you're at our campus, but extending beyond to when you graduate. We're very proud of our outstanding and accessible faculty. Our faculty are required to have office hours so that they have open door policies, so you can go in and be they're very accessible to you. You can go in and ask any questions that you have, and then extensive support networks as well for so many different reasons. You know, if you need support in math or in writing or in your particular field of study, we have those for you. If you have needs for health services, we have those on each of our campuses. We have robust therapy and psychological support networks as well. And really a commitment to diversity and our students being able to choose so many different academic programs, but different resource groups and different activities once we're on campus. This is our map here. Let me show you of the entire state of California and where we're located up and down the coast. And then, of course, in our inland valleys too. So as I mentioned, 23 different universities that are comprising the California State University system. We have 3 universities that are called Polytechnic Universities. So Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly Pomona, and Cal Poly Humboldt State. Those are our 3 polytechnic. Polytechnic really means hands-on learning. So specifically for types of programs like engineering and the sciences and agriculture and architecture, our campuses there focus on those. Many of our other universities throughout the state also have really great science and engineering and STEM programs as well, like SDSU, but those are our Cal Poly technical schools. We also, coming down the coast from Humboldt, we have Sonoma and San Francisco State and East Bay located in Hayward, Maritime, all located in the Bay Area, San Jose State and Monterey as well. And then we have in the Central Valley area, coming down from the north, from Chico and Sacramento, we get into Stanislaus, Fresno, Bakersfield, and then the Central Coast with San Luis Obispo, as I mentioned, and then coming down to Ventura area with Channel Islands. And then in Los Angeles, we have quite a few different CSU campuses in Northridge, Los Angeles, Dominguez Hills, Pomona, as I mentioned, and Long Beach. Fullerton is our campus in Orange County, San Bernardino there, as well as then coming down to San Marcos, and finally our southernmost campus, San Diego State University. So I really want to share with you this evening that a lot of us on this side of the fence who do college admissions, this is really an exciting time because we get to speak with you as students and family members as you're planning out all these different schools that you're going to apply to. It's still October. Our deadline is not until the end of next month. So students, you still have 6 weeks to really investigate and look to see all the different options that are available to you as future college students. I really want to push that the Cal State system itself encourages you to really investigate our different campuses, and we're located in so many different settings around the state that there is definitely a campus that's right for you. There are campuses that are located in rural settings. There are some like San Diego State and San Jose State, very rural, right in the cities. We have campuses that really specialize in specific programs like marine transportation and marine engineering, such as maritime, up to forestry at Humboldt. We have just so much diversity within our system that now is really the time, if you're a senior in high school, to really look to see all these different options throughout the state of California. A big thing that really separates us from other schools too, and specifically with private schools, you're going to see this, is the cost of education. We'll get into this in a few slides, but roughly speaking, we're between $7,000 to $8,000 per year for tuition and fees each year at a CSU. That does not include room and board, so to live on campus, but roughly $7,000 to $8,000 is what the tuition costs are for a full year of education at a CSU campus. And that's one of the cheapest for the systems in the entire United States. On that note too, 81% of our students receive financial aid. So we have all the financial aid services available to you too. All of our universities take the FAFSA forms for financial aid to allow students to apply and be awarded Pell Grants and state grants as well. When we look at the scholarships that are offered as well, all of our universities offer scholarships for students and have some type of work study programs too, if you're interested in getting a job on campus to help support you. More than 50% of our undergraduates leave the university with no loan debt. And that's a really important point I want to really drive home, is that as you're looking at the full cycle of going to school, but then also graduating, of course, you don't want to be saddled with so much debt that it's really hard to get under, especially in this economy. So we're very proud of the fact that 50%, half of our students graduate with no loan debt. And we are ranked among the top 10 in economic mobility. We have, for the entire system itself, over a 90% acceptance rate. So as you'll see, we have some campuses that are large and small, a lot of differences. There are some campuses that are easier, some that are difficult to get into, but we have a lot of variety around, and we have over 90% of our students get an acceptance rate. And over half of our students are actually the first in their family to earn a bachelor's degree. And 95% of our undergraduates come from the state of California. And as I mentioned before, with support, so many different support resources on all of our different campuses. We're really interested in you as a holistic learning environment. Yes, you're coming to the universities for education, but it's all about balance. And we're blending in academic programs with social programs and making sure that you are involved and you have a support network around you. All of us have basic need services offices too, for economic need. Students that need just basic services and supplies, we have those for you. And a lot of student government, clubs, sports, educational opportunity programs for first-generation students, and support networks for foster youth and undocumented students as well at all of our campuses. Very proud that 1 in 10 employees in the state of California graduated from a CSU campus. Our alumni network is huge, to put it mildly. So 4 million alumni throughout the state of California, the nation, and the globe. And 1 in every 20 Americans with a college degree earned it at one of our campuses. Just 2 of our proud alumni here. Our alumni are everywhere, doing everything you can possibly imagine. And then back to resources. I mentioned earlier, some of the Cal Poly Polytechnic schools have agriculture, STEM, biotechnology. A lot of our campuses have science programs and engineering programs, but also in the social sciences and types of programs like public health, so important nowadays. Also looking at programs in the humanities, in the foreign languages, in the social behavioral sciences too, and in education and in business. And no matter what type of field you're interested in, we have opportunities for engaging in undergraduate research. That means that you're meeting with professors, making relationships, having mentors throughout your undergraduate and even graduate experience if you're interested in graduate schools. But from day one as a first-year student, being involved and doing and conducting research with our professors, really getting your hands dirty and being able to put your name on research papers. It's so important that, you know, each year we have a student research symposium where in the spring, all of our students, no matter what discipline you're pursuing, get the opportunity to write and present research topics with their faculty mentors so that you have research under your belt. And that goes a long way if you're at all thinking about applying to medical school or veterinary school, or looking at law school or any professional program or graduate program down the line. It's important to have that experience under your belt. And it's just another example of the way that we support our students to make sure that you are connecting with your academic program. But then again, we're looking at after you graduate, making sure that you are employed.
Can I ask you a quick, there was a question about the SDSU nursing major in terms of its flexibility. So if they got into nursing and got their Bachelor of Science in Nursing at SDSU, they were asking, is that a good undergraduate major if they wanted to go on to apply to medical school? Like if they wanted to use that, does the nursing program help them study for the MCAT, or is it like, how much flexibility does that nursing degree get them?
Yeah, the nursing degree itself is really used for the professional field of nurses, not for becoming an actual doctor or being a veterinarian or really going on to medical school. So our nursing degree is not set up as a preparation program to go into med school. Rather, we have a pre-med advising track, which you could be a nursing major, but most of the students who are doing that track are every other major that you can think of. So declaring something like pre-med or pre-dentistry or veterinary sciences, those are actually not majors at SDSU. You pursue and declare a major in any other field. It could include nursing, but most of our nurses are set up to actually then become a nurse, not to go on to medical school. Some do go on to medical school, but that would be your option. Whether you're a nurse or not at San Diego State, we have a pre-med advising track though. So this is an extra advisory program and faculty that then work with you no matter what discipline you're pursuing for an undergraduate degree. And they're the ones who help you to then apply to graduate medical school after you graduate with the bachelor's degree and helping you prepare for the exams as well. We actually have students in business, in philosophy, yes, in chemistry, and we've had an astronomy student of all things applying to medical school. So a grounding and a foundation in any of the degrees is appropriate. And then this advising program is actually going to help you take the right classes as an upper division student at SDSU to make sure you're taking classes like medical ethics and others that would enable you to then get into medical school. Okay, a quick note, and I think that's a good segue with, nursing. A lot of our CSU campuses have nursing, but it is considered one of, if not the most, impacted programs in the state for our system. And what does that word impaction mean? And you're going to hear that a lot. Impaction really means that there are more eligible students trying to apply for a program or a specific CSU campus than can be readily accommodated. And nursing is a great example because we have a lot of students who are interested in becoming a nurse, but there are sometimes few spaces that are available, and it's more of one of the competitive programs that we see throughout the entire system itself. So to illustrate that a little bit, at San Diego State, overall, for all of our different majors, our admit rate is about a third of the students who apply. So about a third of the students who apply to SDSU as a first-year student are admitted to the university. But for nursing, that comes down to just about 7%. So 7% of the students who apply for nursing are admitted to the university. And you'll see that ours is a bit more competitive than other CSUs throughout the state. But the reason for that is because spaces are limited to ensure that you have space in the hospitals and doing your clinical research and doing your clinical job placement so that we can ensure that you're able to graduate in 4 years. So impacted as a word, you'll see that some CSU campuses are considered impacted. There might be some programs at different universities that are considered impacted. Typically, it means that a campus or a certain program is more competitive than not.
I do have a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead, Carla. Yep.
One is, what are the benefits of being eligible for Compact for Success if they're a Compact student?
Great. Yeah. So for students who participate in Compact for Success, that's an agreement that the university has with the Sweetwater Union High School District schools. And the benefit for being part of Compact is that you join, once you're at campus, you join a program called the Compact Scholars. And so it's a great support network, both socially, but also academically for your classes as well. And then when we look at admissions for students who are verifying that they're part of Compact for Success, and the requirements are that students are enrolled at a Sweetwater Union High School District school for at least from 9th grade through graduation. And then there are certain academic indicators that we look at too. And so that is a guaranteed admission plan for students who would meet that criteria.
And then another question, which CSU is best for business? I'm assuming every CSU offers a business major. I don't know how you would answer which one is best.
Yeah, that's such a subjective question. All of us have great business programs. A shout out to SDSUs, of course. Our business program is 60 years old, and we've educated a lot of the business professionals who are here in the region, who are pursuing their careers. So the networking that you find, not just at San Diego State, but throughout the whole state, is so great and so robust that we have alumni set up in all of the different jobs that you can imagine in the state of California, that we're always looking for new recruits, and our alumni branches are out there. But yes, we have a business at most of the different CSUs, so all of them are just wonderful. And this slide here highlights what campuses are currently impacted at the university. So typically this in a general sense means that the campuses are going to be very strict with application deadlines. This year, all of the campuses that are on the left-hand side of the screen, so Fresno, Fullerton, Long Beach, etc., we're all closing on November 30th for our applications. The schools that are on the right side of your screen, so Bakersfield, Channel Islands, etc., they may be staying open later than November 30th, but still November 30th is a priority deadline. So it is best to make sure that you file your applications before November 30th, but these are campuses that are going to stay open a little bit longer to enable you a bit more time to apply. Typically speaking, and not for every single major, especially like nursing and all of the different campuses, but typically speaking, we see that the campuses on the left-hand side may be a bit more strict when looking at things like the deadlines, but also might be a bit more competitive to be admitted to some of these schools too. On that note, when we're looking at what it takes to be eligible and admitted to any of the CSUs, and I'm going to jump right into SDSU in just a couple slides here, but we are a test-free school. Much like Chris had mentioned with the UC schools, we at the CSU are test-free. That means it's neither a benefit nor a detriment if you list your SAT or ACT exam scores on the application, or indeed whether or not you even take the exams. It's not going to have a weight at all in our admissions review, whether you list it, whether you even have it. What we do look at for the entire system itself, just to be eligible in the system, is to eventually graduate from high school. So you need to be on track to earn your diploma. And then much like the UCs, as you heard, completing what we call the A through G courses. So that's the same in both of the state systems. In both the CSU and the UC, you're required to have at least 2 years of history and social science, at least 4 years of English completed. And we're talking from 9th grade all the way up through this entire year, up until June when you're graduating as a senior. Make sure you have 4 years of English completed, at least 3 years of math completed. And math and the foreign languages can start early. They can start as early as 7th grade. We have students taking algebra and geometry, so that's fine as well. And then laboratory sciences, one science has to be life science, like biology. The other can be a physical science, like physics or chemistry, and they have to have labs attached to them. As I mentioned, a foreign language, or we call it language other than English. We also will look at American Sign Language as an option to meet that requirement too. A year of visual and performing arts, whether it's music or dance or theater, and then a year of electives. Essentially anything from this list, but above and beyond the bare bones minimums. And these are the bare bones minimums. We want students to challenge themselves and have more than just the minimums, but these are the minimums that all of our campuses are going to look for, really as a checklist, looking at from 9th grade through 12th grade. Again, the exception with math and foreign language starting earlier, to make sure that you're on track to complete these by the time you graduate. And then a 2.5 GPA or greater is the requirement to be eligible for any of the CSU campuses. There is some wiggle room if you're between a 2.0 and a 2.49 at some of the campuses. We can use some other factors at some CSU campuses, and those campuses are not the impacted ones typically, but those that are not impacted and have a bit more space for students, but we're looking at for all of the CSUs at least a 2.5 or greater for a minimum. These are not actual GPA numbers that I'm telling you. You have a 2.5 and that's all that you have, and that's going to grant you admission. That's to be minimally eligible to the system itself. And in reality, we look at multi-factors. Unlike the UCs and what you heard from Chris, the CSU campuses are not focusing on an essay. We're not focusing on, say, letters of recommendation or even lists of extracurricular activities that you've been involved with. Entrance into a CSU campus is really based on these academic factors, looking at all of the A through G courses that you've had as a senior in high school now, looking at what you've already completed for A through G courses, the GPA in those courses, and then again, what you're involved in and enrolled in right now for your classes as a senior, but then also looking at what major are you choosing. We may want to look at, say, if you are interested in biology or in chemistry or in mechanical engineering, we want to see how well you've done in mathematics courses. We want to see what special courses in math you've taken above and beyond the minimums. So these are the extra academic factors that we are looking at for admission purposes as primary factors for admission. But then these secondary factors, like such things as being a first-generation student, being low income, foster youth, family military service, looking at your high school specifically for San Diego State and the other CSUs for that matter too. We all have what we call local admissions area schools. So for San Diego State, that's any high school that is within the bounds of San Diego Unified, Grossmont Union, or Sweetwater Union high school districts, extending all the way east through all the Imperial Valley high schools, as well as any other charter or private high school located in San Diego County, south of the 56 freeway. Those are our local areas. So the location of your high school also will play a factor in our admissions review too. So that is an important step to know, that the CSU system itself, all 23 of our campuses have a local admissions area where if you're graduating from a high school surrounding that campus, essentially, there are some extra considerations that go into admission. This is a great website for you. This is actually the website you need to go to apply to the campuses. It is one website where all 23 campuses are available for you to apply to. It's essentially one common type of application that you're filling out and selecting which of the campuses you're interested in. And all of the campuses will ask you what major at our campus are you interested in pursuing. Undeclared at most of our campuses is still certainly an option. And so you have that ability, if you're not sure exactly what campus you're interested in, that you can go and actually apply as an undecided student, as an undeclared student. Does it have a benefit for admission? No, it doesn't. At SDSU, it does not matter if you're a biology student or a business student or undeclared. Again, that word impacted, we are a campus for which all of our majors are impacted. It's more competitive to be admitted to SDSU, no matter what major you choose, than some of the other Cal State universities, because all of our majors are impacted. And whether you apply as an undecided student, or undeclared, I should say, or in business, it could be just as competitive should you choose one over the other. There's not one major that's more difficult to get into or less competitive. Although I will say for nursing, as I mentioned earlier, we've seen that nursing typically has been the most competitive program year in and year out. So just a few things about San Diego State. So if you haven't been to visit San Diego State at all, or it's been a while since you visited, please come and join us. We do campus tours Monday through Friday in the morning at 9:30 in the morning, also in the afternoons at 12:30. And you can sign up for those just on our website. But we have a wonderful, beautiful campus with 34, on this slide, you'll see 34,842 students, We actually have a little bit of an uptick this semester, just running all of our fall enrollment data. And so we have about 31,000 students who are pursuing undergraduate programs and a very big graduate school too. So we have a lot of students who are going on for their teaching credentials to be certified to teach high school or elementary schools in the state of California. We have different graduate level programs such as master's degrees, even some doctorate programs too. And overall, over 200 different degree choices for students to pursue at San Diego State. And we are expanding. We have a campus already out in Mission Valley, but we have our Imperial Valley, I should say. We have our Mission Valley campus that will be coming online soon. We have our stadium already built where the Aztecs play, not just football, but our soccer and lacrosse teams as well. So go check out the stadium and root on the Aztecs, just a beautiful space. And then we're developing that old Qualcomm area too into classroom space and residential and commercial space too. So a lot in the works in the next few years. Tons of support networks and campus resources at SDSU, whether you need help in tutoring in math, in English, in your specific degree choice of business or engineering, what have you. We have mentors and we have tutors available for you, counseling and psychological services, economic crisis response teams, if you need that assistance as well, identity centers, so our Pride Center, our Women's Resource Center, Undocumented Resource Center, Black Resource Center, just to name a few. So there's a lot of support that we have on campus for our students. Our timeline is the same as a lot of other CSUs. So October 1 through November 30th is these 2 months in which you will be applying to the universities. And then as we scroll down here, we have November 5th coming up on just a few Saturdays. We have a preview day that if you're available, it's the morning. It's from 9 a.m. until noon on Saturday, November 5th. It's a virtual preview day. And essentially, we have all of our deans and the college and majors representing, so that they'll be presenting and speaking on their great programs. So please join us and note that URL and log on that day at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, November 5th. In the spring is when we make admission decisions and when we do housing license agreements if you are required to live on campus for students outside of our local territory. So if you're graduating from a high school north of the 56 freeway, so say north of San Diego Unified Boundaries and Rancho Penasquita or Poway, and then on up through other areas of California, then it is required to live on campus for 2 years. But if you are a local applicant, it is not required. We have housing available, but if you're graduating from San Diego Unified or Sweetwater or Grossmont or any of those schools within our local area, it is not required to live on campus, but available. April 15th, we have our admitted student day. It's our big open house in person on campus. And we're typically making admission decisions the first week of March. So it's really not until spring that you're going to hear from us. You're applying this month and then next month. And then it takes all these months, about 4 months or so, to evaluate your application and to make admission decisions. So we're looking at really March when those decisions would be coming out. And then you will have at least those 2 months between March and April to then make a decision what campus you're going to be attending in the fall. And May 1st is our deadline. We look at just self-reported information on the application. So we have you, just like the UCs, and as Chris had mentioned, going over the application, entering in from your transcript, self-reporting, making sure you're 100% accurate, all of your courses in all the A through G areas, make sure everything is indicated as it is on your transcript, and then we're taking your word for it, basically, and then admitting you based on that information. And then you need to send in official transcripts to make sure that everything matches up correctly. May 1st is the first deadline for that, to make sure you have your transcripts in with your agreement that you're attending in the next fall. And then in July, after you graduate from high school, we request another round of transcripts. Again, we're showcasing the A through G criteria here. I know this presentation will be, it's recorded and set up for you on the website, so you can come back to this if you need to, but the A through G are listed here. And again, what we're looking at is all of these A through G courses. Ideally, the more the merrier, that you have more than just 3 years of math, more than just, say, 2 years of lab sciences. Many students have, for instance, both chemistry and physics completed, as well as biology. So we do like to see that students are challenging themselves, not just the rigor of your courses, but if you're at all interested in something like computer science or biology or engineering, that you are challenging yourself with advanced mathematics courses and doing well in those classes as well. We do take weighted courses. So for a weighted GPA, we will look at if you're in AP courses or honors, true honors courses at your high school. Also, if you've taken college level classes at a community college or at a different, at maybe a CSU or at a UC, we want those listed on the application as well. And if they fit into one of our A through G categories, you can get weighted GPA credit for that as well. Here's a list of all of our different majors. So you can find this on our website too, but I just wanted to illustrate for you, we have 7 academic colleges. Our college system is not a residential type of system. They're broken down administratively into, say, similar types of grouping. So for instance, all of our business majors are grouped together into one college, our Fowler College of Business. We have a College of Education, a college devoted to engineering, a College of Health and Human Services, where social work is, speech, language, hearing sciences, kinesiology, like physical therapy, nursing, public health. And then we have professional studies of fine arts, criminal justice, but all in hospitality and tourism management and public administration, but also such things as art and communication and journalism and theater and film. And then we have our sciences major, it's college with all of our, of course, science programs, but then arts and letters, which is our largest by sheer offerings, all of the humanity programs and all of the languages and types of programs such as literature, linguistics, political science, and philosophy. On the far right side here in the bottom right, you'll see, as I mentioned earlier, our pre-professional programs. And you'll find this at all of our different CSUs as well. We all have professional programs so that if you're interested in going to medical school or to law school, or you want to be a veterinarian, we have pathways for that. You're not getting a specific undergraduate major in pre-med or pre-law. You're actually doing any other major that we have and then joining our pre-professional program so that you can then go onward to medical school or law school after you graduate. For any student who's interested in transferring eventually, if you're not coming into San Diego State or any of the CSUs as a first-year student, we have guaranteed admission plans with our community colleges. We have 7 community colleges that are located within our local geographic region in San Diego, and they're listed here on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. So Grossmont College, City College, etc. We have pathways for you. You would do 2 years at the community college first, and then transfer over to San Diego State to pursue the last 2 years of just your upper division coursework, so that you still, if you're interested in it, can graduate within a 4-year degree time. 2 years at the community colleges, and then admission pathways specifically for our local area students to come in then as a transfer student. And that's a great choice that a lot of students make as well. We typically have about 4,000 new transfer students joining us at San Diego State every year. Just a few more slides here. I just wanted to show you, as I mentioned very early on, we're very much in tune to how much cost of education is. And we're looking at about, and this is all before scholarships, all before any type of financial aid that you would have that would offset these costs. We're looking at about $8,000 for our basic tuition and fees, and that is per year. The largest fee that you're going to see on here by far is the on-campus food and housing. So if you are living on campus, you do need to budget out that for a room assignment and for a full meal plan, it's roughly about $2,000 each month while you're enrolled at the university. Students, again, within our local area are not required to live on campus, but it is an option for you. And keep in mind, these are very high-end figures. So we give you essentially what is the highest amount that you would be paying as a student who would have, say, a single in our residential halls with the ultimate meal plan. You're looking at about $19,000 per academic year for that. But again, that's not needed if you're living off campus, living still at home, or if you're a local student, accommodations in the area. But keep in mind that we have about $4,000 budgeted for you for books and supplies, and then transportation costs with gas if you're a commuting student coming in as well. So for California residents, we're looking at all inclusive, including living on campus, about $32,000 per year. And again, this is before financial aid and before scholarships. You apply for financial aid, you'll see the link, the fafsa.gov link on the top right of this slide. You do that after you apply for admission into the universities and indicate which campuses you're applying to. And over the coming months, then our universities will look at your information and family income, household size, and estimated family contribution, and come back to you with what types of funding the state and the federal government can provide to you to go to our schools. And here's just a little bit more about housing. If you are interested in living on campus, there are so many great benefits to doing that. Being on campus 24/7 and having access to a lot of our resources as well. And we have different communities that we can pair you up with the ideal roommate with similar interests. So great community at San Diego State. And then lastly, just some contact information for us. If you haven't already, you can go to our website. On the bottom right here is our website, /stay connected, and that can put your name into our database so you get our emails about our preview day coming up. And of course, if you're moving forward and you're ready to apply to San Diego State, you can just go right to Cal State Apply and submit an application, and then you'll be, of course, in our database immediately that way too. And then contact us for any questions. Email us, the email address is listed on here, but also we have Zoom hours every day. We are physically on campus at SDSU during the morning and then the afternoon, and then between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. on Fridays, we're on Zoom, and come visit us in our virtual admissions office, and we're more than happy just to go and review everything with you one-on-one. So now I know I have a little bit of time and I can field some questions. Carla, were there any questions that really stood out that you'd like me to tackle?
One that stood out is which majors at SDSU are considered the most impacted and or the least impacted?
So that's a very good question. Aside from nursing, all of the other freshman majors are, I would say, very much impacted. So there's not one at the first year level that's more or less impacted aside from nursing. Now, music, theater, and dance they are impacted so that they do require auditions into their programs. The other majors do not have an audition or any type of portfolio that you would need to submit. For transfer students coming in, and once you're at the university, there are our business majors are some of the most impacted. Majors such as kinesiology and psychology and biology are as well. But that doesn't necessarily translate to access for first-year students. So I don't want to try and have you try to outthink the system and outthink the box here and try to think that one major versus another is more competitive for first-year admissions.
Okay. One student is in Ontario, Canada. They've only had 1 year of history because AP European history was canceled. And I know it has under A through G 2 years of social science required. What would the situation be for that student?
Well, we would still need 2 years, even if you're coming from Canada, coming from a different system, or any of our international students. we still look at, it can be your regional and your country's history, but it would need to be a social science. So other types of courses that really fit that bill for social science or any of the social behavioral sciences. So a lot of times we will blend in, say, a year of history with a semester of economics and a semester of psychology. We have students doing geography, world history, world civilizations, Latin American history, Canadian history, perhaps. So you can blend that with other social sciences.
And there are some GPA questions, like if someone, for example, doesn't qualify for compact, what would be a good competitive GPA to get into SDSU?
As high as possible. We've really seen that it's gone up tremendously the last number of years. We don't have a minimum that I can give you because the minimums are sometimes based on the student and how competitive it is in any given year. But we've seen averages for average students, the average admitted applicant up to about a 3.9 or so. That's not a minimum by any means. We encourage students, especially from our local area, to apply and not think you need to have a 3.9, but it's getting more and more competitive each year.
Okay. CSU applications have a section to report an estimated amount of extracurricular or work hours over their past 3 years of high school. How important is this section of the application, and how will it be considered compared to the self-reported grades section?
It's a secondary factor that some campuses will look at. At SDSU, we're currently not looking at those. And one of the reasons why is just because of the pandemic and students not able to be as involved as possible or have work hours. But there are some other campuses that may be looking at that, not as a primary feature. So the GPA and the A through G courses are always going to be the most important, but as a secondary feature that they may look at. And I know for a fact some of the campuses may consider students who are under that 2.5 bare bones minimum. If the student has, say, a 2.4 GPA or so, that campus would then consider the extracurriculars like that for admission purposes.
Okay, and I wanted to mention, I know we're definitely at time. I can stay on a few more minutes, but Matthew, I don't know if you're available to keep taking questions.
Yeah, I can stay a few more minutes too.
Okay, so someone asked, is there a maximum GPA at the CSU? They know that you cap the honors and AP credit at a certain number of semesters. So is there like a max GPA number? Is it like, well, you just can't calculate higher than a 4.6 or something like that? Is there a maximum?
We take up to 8 semesters maximum for AP credit. So I believe that the absolute max based on that calculation is a 4.4. So that's really the max that we would look at.
Okay, and that's based on sophomore, junior.
Exactly. Right? Yep. And then even considering because we'll look at focusing on 10th and 11th grade GPA as we're doing our admissions review, and then we'll always compute the senior level grades after we offer the admissions offer. Some CSUs may look at it at the half-year mark as well. But we'll see that calculated again and again. And we've had students with 4.4s in the past. Okay.
How can an applicant determine if their high school courses are relevant to their selected major?
By that, we really mean that it's really within the STEM field. So for any major that you'll see and you could look at our SDSU course catalog as well. You'll see that some of our degrees are Bachelor of Sciences, and specifically if they're housed within the College of Science and College of Engineering, then we're looking at the STEM preparation courses. So in math and then in sciences. If, on the other hand, you're interested in a literature major or English, then you should be doing well, of course, in your English courses. If you're a history major or a political science major, then looking at the social behavioral sciences, and then in the arts, looking at the arts too.
Okay. Will the COVID pass-fail grades that happen in spring of 2020 be factored in, since the GPA might be lower due to that?
Well, yes and no. So the benefit is that if you had a deficient grade during that time frame and your school has now given you the pass, and by extension, the CSU system would for that semester, then the grade actually is not calculated within the GPA. But the tricky thing is it's not an added bonus. So if you have just a P for pass in that semester, there's no actual numerical value that we're assigning to that grade. And so that grade itself is going to remain a P. And so not calculated as an A or what have you. So it's kind of like we're giving you credit for taking and completing that course itself as kind of a checklist, but it's not to your advantage to add on top of your GPA, if that makes sense.
Yes. All right, so we are definitely 5 minutes over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and conclude there. And I'm sorry, I know there's a couple of questions that we didn't get to answer. What I would recommend for all you folks, if you didn't get your specific question answered, is if you email them to admissions, and I put this in the chat, admissions@sdsu.edu, and ask your specific question in writing, and that way someone from the admissions office can get back to you. But a big thank you to Matthew Hebert and to SDSU for joining us, and thank you all families and students. Appreciate your time and your questions, and this will be on the CalSoap website starting tomorrow in the webinars and blog section, so you can see the recording. So thank you everybody, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.